In this presentation, I'm going to explain some features about our textbook that should help you to maximize your learning for this course. To begin, each chapter has a cover page that has a concept map. This map shows key themes to the chapter as well as any subheadings or other more detailed analyses related to that theme. You'll also find important vocabulary words and a general question relating to the broad theme of the chapter. Turning the page, we see a fairly typical layout for a spread in the book. The important thing to note here are the two different margins. Most of the time, John Chaffee, the author or editor of the textbook, is the one doing the speaking. That's marked by this outer margin here. But sometimes a specific philosopher, or in this case, former students of his, are doing the speaking and he's quoting them at length. This is noted by an indentation of the margin. Sometimes it's also offset by a different color line or something like that if it's a lengthy passage. But just be aware of what the margin is so that you can understand who's doing the speaking. You'll also find a graphic or picture that's some kind of visual representation of the theme in the pages at hand, along with some clarifying text, generally starting with a question and then some elaboration for your own consideration. In this first chapter, since we're concerned with defining philosophy, note that there are margin notes around different philosophers and their definitions or descriptions of what philosophy is. These are historical, not in any particular order, but lots of the chapters will have some kind of margin note that could be a vocabulary word or explanation. Thinking philosophically boxes appear every so often in the text and again relate to the themes at hand. These are broader, open-ended questions that are meant to get you to connect what you've been reading to your own life. As you can see, this particular Thinking Philosophically box is your philosophy of life, and so there are lots of questions. These may be shorter or longer depending on what we're trying to get you to think about and how to relate it to your life. Throughout the text, you'll encounter lengthier passages from particular philosophers about the question at hand. This is from Chapter 1, which is What is Philosophy? And it's an excerpt from Bertrand Russell where he's discussing the value of philosophy and how it might be different from other fields of thought. You'll note that we have the band here as well as the title to know that this is Bertrand Russell speaking, not the textbook author. So keep those in mind, particularly where you might want to quote for an essay question or a paper later in the term. Reading critically boxes appear after these passages and are opportunities for students to gauge their understanding of what they just read. These generally start with some kind of summary or explanation question about a particular quote, phrase, or series of sentences. And then there are other questions that are critical evaluation, so a little bit deeper understanding. Why do you think she said that, or why do you think he is comparing this to that? Students should always be able to understand and answer these questions fairly confidently, and if not, then reread the passage. These might show up as discussion questions in the course or form the basis of short answer questions on exams. Each chapter ends with a review and an extension or ideas for further reading. This is important for a few reasons. One, these ideas as captured in the boxes with page references should be familiar to the student. So as you read that after reading the chapter, you should be able to say, oh yeah, I remember that idea, or that sounds familiar, I get it. There are also key visuals from the chapter that reinforce the concepts along the way, and so the repetition of the image should trigger some familiarity again of what was at stake in those passages. The further reading and research section has two parts. Generally some films. Most often these are popular Hollywood films that you can watch to see ideas in action or illustrations of particular themes. And then the literature could be other philosophical works or also works of fiction where philosophical ideas are on display. These are good to check out, good to keep in mind that philosophy is alive and with us, and that things that are entertaining are often entertaining precisely because they treat a philosophical idea and not that they're as brainless as we think that they are. All of these tools, the visual representations, the thinking philosophically boxes, the margin text and questions, are designed to help students navigate these difficult and sometimes crazy ideas. Reading a philosophy book or a lengthy passage is difficult without some additional support to understand just what the heck is going on. And that's what these do. They're just meant to kind of trigger and connect ideas so that you can have more rewarding discussions, do better on assignments, and sound smart at parties on the weekend.